Hello, it's Scott, Rockfile, back with another podcast. This is a video game review of the new Phoenix Point. I'd like to say and stress that this is first impressions only. I have not played enough of the game to give you a full review, but I'd like to give you a little history and why you should check this game out. In 1994, I was just getting into computers. My stepfather gave me, I believe it was a 386-25. 25 hertz, seriously. And at the time, Doom was coming out. I had played Wolfenstein and things like that when I was in college. There were a bunch of Air Force ROTC guys that traded floppy disks back in the day, and we played these early rudimentary games like Zork, which was basically a text-only adventure. Look these things up if you haven't checked them out, if you're not a long-time video game fan. But in 1994... I got a demo of a game called XCOM UFO Defense, and it was on a single floppy disk. That's 1.4 megabytes. The floppy disk contained the demo for the game that was basically one mission. But when you booted up the demo, it randomized everything. So every time you played the demo, it was different. Pretty much the same map, but different aliens, different... XCOM is a story of, well, XCOM is a group that is tasked with protecting the Earth from an alien invasion. It is a turn-based strategy game that came out in 1994. Very rudimentary graphics by today's standards, but very, very addictive because of the same reason Dead Souls is addictive in those games. You could die really easily. Let me explain. In the full game, you build a base and you recruit soldiers and you send these soldiers on missions to go defend a farm, a city, a finite map, a square map that you cannot see when you land on it. It is hidden, the fog of war as they call it. And as you step off the aircraft and move your guys around, you would unlock more of the map. You would see more of your surroundings. Turn-based is like a chess game. Your guys go, their guys go. Your guys go, their guys go. That's in opposition to a real-time strategy game like StarCraft, where everything is always moving at all the time. I love turn-based strategy games. I like the idea of coming up with a strategy and having the time to implement it. And back in the day on a 386-25, when I got the full game, it would take forever for the aliens to move. I mean, forever. By today's standards, on a modern computer, it takes place in a split second. That's how far we've come in processing power. But I played the demo, this single mission, over and over and over before they said, okay, now the full game is coming. I'm like, there's a whole game with this? I mean, because... It was like playing a mini chess match. It was a farm level. It had a building in it. Sometimes, just a single building. The walls were destructible. There were multiple levels. Your guys have a certain amount of points each turn that they can move. Basically, you can move and shoot. You can move, or you can shoot twice. Or you can go into Overwatch mode, and that is basically save your points, and in the alien's turn, if they moved in front of your field of fire, you would shoot on them automatically. XCOM was brutally difficult. Like I said before, you could die very easily. Since you couldn't see the whole map, you had to be careful, and if one of your guys strayed and stopped his turn outside of cover, you could almost guarantee he would die. Because when it became the aliens' turn, one of them would pop out of somewhere, because you couldn't see the whole map, you didn't know where, and shoot them. And they were more accurate than you were in the beginning. As you played the game, your guys got more accurate, more powerful. But I'm talking the very beginning and talking this demo that I literally played hundreds of times before the original game came out. And it was a PC game. It was available, I think, on a few other things. Eventually, they made a PlayStation port for PlayStation 1. And it was followed up a year later by XCOM Terror from the Deep, which was the exact same game, except the missions took place underwater. And it was even more difficult because there were some really long missions. And there have been a series of XCOM games after that. But going back to the first one, it was addictive because it was so hard. And you learn to save a lot because if you made a couple wrong moves, you weren't going to win the map. They would wipe out all your guys and keep your jet, and then you would have to recruit more guys, build a new jet. So the missions themselves didn't take very long, other than on an old computer it would take forever to process their movements. But the entire game took a long time, and you have a planetscape view of the entire Earth. You can turn the globe around. You can tell your ship to go fly other missions all over the place. And it went from there, and it built to a bigger storyline where eventually at the end of the first game, you have to teleport to Mars and find out that at least you think you're stopping the main invasion, but when you stop the main invasion, it sends a signal to the ocean, and that was the sequel. It unlocked aliens that were hibernating in the ocean, and you had a whole nother XCOM game, XCOM 2, Terror from the Deep. In 2012, they resurrected XCOM, but all of the games that followed the original XCOM and XCOM Terror from the Deep were not part of the creator's vision, Julian Gollop. He created the very first one. It was his idea to take... There were a couple of turn-based strategy games around at the time, but XCOM quickly rose to the top. Everybody who ever played it has a warm place in their heart for this game. And to this day, I will still play the original version. Steam has an original version. It's a DOS game that will play on current systems. And it's still fun to play, even with the rudimentary graphics, because the game is so well thought out and so well executed and so difficult. Even on the easiest setting, your guys could just instantly die. So, long preface here about XCOM games. In 2012, they resurrected them on the PS3 and the PC with a new XCOM game. It definitely held the flavor of the original and was quite good. There's been an XCOM 2. The last add-on came out in 2017, so it's been a couple years. All of this time, though, we've been waiting for the original guy, Julian, to create a new XCOM game. And obviously he doesn't have the rights anymore and that kind of thing, but it's still this guy. And so a couple years ago, he started making Phoenix Point, which is a new turn-based strategy game that came out yesterday, December the 3rd. It's taken a long time to come. But from the earliest incarnations, that they put it up on, it was Kickstarter or Indiegogo, probably Kickstarter, that they were going to create something in the vein of XCOM. Since they didn't have the rights to that universe, they were going to make something completely new. Basically, global warming causes the ice caps to melt. It releases an alien virus that's been held in the ice, and things start mutating, and people start mutating. And basically, it's not an alien menace, but it is. And again, it's the same kind of game. You have a base. You build the base up. You do research. You send guys out on missions. They bring back stuff. You research the stuff. You get more powerful. You learn more of the story. So I was a backer of this game early on. Early on, you could get it cheaply and get all the extras, and I think my name is even going to be in the final version. I haven't checked that yet, but that'd be very cool. So it came out yesterday, December the 3rd, on PC and Mac, and in 2020, it'll be out on Xbox and PlayStation. These are the kind of games I still boot up my computer for. I love strategy games. Civilization. I'm on Civilization 6. I've played all the Civilization games. I still play the old X-Files, XCOM games. I like the modern XCOM 1 and 2, these more recent from 2012 and on. I did like those. But I was hoping for something a little more like the original. Always wanted something like that. Obviously, our graphics have gotten better. Obviously, gameplay has had a few tweaks, but the modern XCOM games have tried to keep them as close to the original as possible, and I played through all of them multiple times. I've played hundreds of hours of XCOM in my life. It is one of my all-time favorite games. So, I was an early backer, so I got early advanced gameplay of Phoenix Point, and I played around with it a little bit. But because it was a work in progress, I didn't want to play it too much. I didn't get the full game. It was like a mission or two. And it was okay. I just didn't give it much time because I'm waiting for the full game, and it took a long time, as this does, especially from an independent movie company. But it's finally out, and here are my first impressions. It's awesome. It plays like a AAA game. It looks like a AAA game. It might as well be. Maybe it is. Maybe they've got some serious backing. It looks gorgeous. It plays smooth as silk. I have a modest system. I recently upgraded to 16 gigs of RAM. I have a good video card from a couple of years ago. It plays really well. It scales really well. It adds some things that XCOM never had that we kind of always wanted. It's definitely still that you send the squad on missions, you do missions, you bring the stuff back, you research it. There are now factions that you can do things for. But the actual gameplay is still that turn-based gameplay where you can die easily, and it's incredibly well done. What they have added to that is when you choose to shoot a bad guy, you can just shoot the bad guy, or you can target particular body parts, the head, the arm, the weapon, the legs, the carapace, the shield. You early on fight these mutated crab-like things. And you have to go up against some other soldiers, which was also tough. And like I said, the graphics are great, very modern, very slick, a lot of details in the graphics. And the first person, when you go to target a specific body part, it goes into a first-person mode, so you really get up close on the models, on these aliens, on the creatures, on the soldiers, and it's really great graphics. I assume it's the Unreal Engine or maybe their own engine. But first impressions are this is going to be an addictive game. There is a lot more going on. There's a lot more stuff to deal with in your base than there has ever been before. There's a lot more stuff to deal in with the soldiers, recruiting them, leveling them up, getting them better weapons, getting them better skills. There's just a lot more in this game than has ever been in an XCOM. And it does feel like an XCOM, but it's so much more. So I will do another review after I've played, 20 to 40 hours and really gotten into the game and kind of learned a little bit more about the story. But the first few hours have been spectacular. That no crashes. It's like I said, very smooth gameplay. It looks great, plays great. A bit of a learning curve for me, and I'm a lifelong XCOM fan. I did play the tutorial. I started to jump into it. I'm like, whoa, there's a lot more in the menu than I was expecting. There's a lot more you can do with the base than I was expecting. And so I went back and started again with the tutorial, and it showed me the basics. But still, once it takes the gloves off and says, okay, here you go, you're playing the full game. A bit of a learning curve, but that's cool. I like a really intelligent game, and it certainly is. So, Phoenix Point, if you have a good PC or a Mac, go ahead and check this game out if you like turn-based strategy games. If you are a console player, it will be coming next year. I don't know that I will get a console version. I might, because I did get XCOM on PC and PS3 and PS4, and XCOM 2. But Phoenix Point, so far, really high marks. First impressions, I'm really digging it, and I can't wait to play more. And it's been a long time since I've played an XCOM game like that, at least a few years. So anyway, check out Phoenix Point. It's available now for download. Unfortunately, it's on Epic Games. I had a bit of an issue, as some people do with Epic Games, but they fixed it quickly. They got back to me. I was ready to go on the day it was released. It downloaded easily, and it played easily. So check out Phoenix Point. I'm Scott Hamilton. I'm Rockfile. I'm a bit of a gamer, a music file, and a movie file, and I love this kind of media in modern times. Other people are into history or politics or whatever. I'm into movies, music, and games. So if you like that, follow my podcast. Please subscribe on Spotify, on iTunes, on Google Play, or right here wherever you're listening to this. Thank you for downloading it and spending about, 14 minutes talking about a video game that just came out that you've never heard of. But Phoenix Point, it's really, really good so far. I'm Scott Hamilton. Thanks for listening.